All right, and we are live for episode number 20 of the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Mr. Neil LaFortune, coming from the new drum room here in Orillia, Ontario, Canada. I'm excited for today's guest. I'm excited for all of these guests because I learn more about the music business. I learn more about what it takes to become a top flight drummer, some things that I didn't know and didn't have experience. And I love learning, constantly learning, and from people who have done things and had success in other areas. Today's guest is coming all the way from Orlando, Florida. He hails from, well, for the last little while, Nashville, Tennessee. He is an extremely well-rounded drummer. The promo video that I put up had him playing with Crystal Gale, but he has played jazz, he has played Broadway, he has done sessions, he has recorded commercial jingles, he has played Olympic Games, he has played special corporate events. I'm trying to read some notes here. He remains in top demand to cover most anything with professionalism. I'm going to send a little Mr. Duane Norman all the way from Orlando, Florida, and look at this. Now,
here we are.
How easy is that?
There you go.
That's good. Thank you for joining us here on the 20th episode of the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. Should be the Gretsch Morning Coffee Break, and it is still, this is my first one still.
There you go. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much, Duane.
So how's the drum room working out for you?
Drum room is really, really terrific here. The student set is over on the right so that the students, and most of them, actually all of them, are right-handed drummers, so when they look over the hi-hat, they see me in view and we're playing on the same limb rather than and it's great, and it's separate from the house, so I appreciate that. I have been aware of you for probably a decade or so ago back.
Wow.
There was a drum, the Gretsch, I forget what it was called. It was a little place, a website that we could go to, and I sent you a message, and you were gracious enough to reply, and your presence on there was really appreciated because you had a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and so I remember chatting with you, and then when I saw you on Facebook, I'm like, man. And then me becoming an endorser, gradually starting this show, I'm like, I've got to have Duane on here.
Great. So, well, thanks for asking me.
So I want to go back. What have you been doing since March when COVID shut down live music?
Nothing. No, actually, from my playing perspective, it's actually been kind of cool and refreshing because I've had, obviously, plenty of time to work on a lot of things that beforehand I wouldn't have been able to do because I'm either, leaving to go out on a short tour or just busy all the time. And so now I've got all this time. I'm hearing things, I'm trying things, and I'm fortunate enough when I'm back in Nashville, I have a drum room, and I just walk in, and I'm one of these guys that I've always thought that unlike other instruments, we have a tendency to, well, I can play this groove. Let me play this groove. Let me play that groove. We have this whole vocabulary of grooves, which is fine, but I've always been one, and I talk about this when I do my clinics and stuff. Every other instrument, I think, piano, guitar, you can sit down and you can just start playing and you can improvise and do whatever. So I think that's really beneficial for a drummer to be able to do that. And what I refer to that as is just basically having a dialogue with yourself.
Yeah. Okay?
I'm going to sit down. I'm not going to have any preconceived ideas. I'm not going to play a groove that I know I can play. I'm not going to play, a samba lick that I know I can play. I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to whatever. And I enjoy doing that. And I've been doing a lot of that.
And that's great. Have you recorded any of those things and listened back?
No.
And it's nice to just be in the moment because a lot of times working musicians, we play a lot of songs, and sometimes I feel I get a little disconnected. It's like I feel like I can't play the drums anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because all you're doing is just like kind of playing grooves.
Yeah.
To me. But I've been playing long enough that, like you say, getting back to the recording part of it, I don't record it because I feel like if I latch onto something that I think is really cool, I can internalize it enough in my mind that I can store it away for future use.
That's really good. And it's nice to feel connected to the instrument, you know.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of that came from students when I sat down and I say, well, guys, let's just start off today. Let's play something for me. And they reach for their book, their method book, and they say, what page? And I've said, no, you don't understand. No page. Put the book away. Just play. And a lot of them, they can't do it.
How do you get them over that? I have a couple of students, it's the same way, and they're readers.
Yeah, which is great. I think what I've always done is just tried to keep encouraging them to do it. And I said, look, from this point, there's no right, there's no wrong.
Oh, that's good.
So I demonstrate. I'm like, I play something completely wacky, and I go, see, now how was that? Was that stupid? Was it right? Was it cool? Was it, and then that kind of loosens them up a little bit, just to show them that because they're always worried, especially in the teacher-student situation, that you're going to critique every little thing they do, and it's like, look, just do it,
Right. That's good. That's good advice. How much do you teach, or?
I discontinued my teaching at the beginning of this COVID thing because I'm surprised that I'm doing this now. I mean, but we're just talking. I have a real aversion to Zoom and things like that because there's that lag, and I don't want to talk to somebody, a student, and try to teach them over the internet and things. I'm just going to wait. I needed a break anyhow. I mean, because in the peak of my teaching, I was doing like Mondays and Tuesdays at a place in Nashville. And I had 12 and 13 students a day.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And I would come home after Tuesday night, and I would just sit in a chair and just collapse.
It's very draining.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It is. So I'm not doing anything right now, but I may get into it a little later. I don't know.
And you also do clinics, which I forgot to mention.
Yes.
I didn't mention the educator part at all, and we'll get into that. Actually, I'd like to go back to the beginning. And where did you grow up? Where are you from originally?
Coshocton, Ohio.
Where is that?
Coshocton, it's a little bit, where Akron Canton is?
Yes.
Kind of northeast.
Okay.
And that's an Indian name for where waters join. Because right there in my little town, there was like 3 large rivers that just all connected. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Little town, maybe 12,000 people. Very small.
That's nice. And when did you start playing drums? When did they enter your life?
It was probably like in I can't remember exactly what the year was, but I remember seeing the Beatles when they hit the States on the Ed Sullivan Show. So I'm dating myself there, and I'm just like, man, what is that all about? So the cool thing about that was I was in kindergarten. I come walking home from school, and my mom pulls up beside me in the car, and she had gone out and bought the 45 of like "She Loves You" or whatever the first song was, and that was
that's incredible, man. Yeah. I wish sometimes I was a little bit older to experience Beatlemania, because I know my siblings definitely did. I'm the youngest, and what an exciting time. So you were 5 when you around 5, 6 years old?
Yeah, I guess.
And then
but I didn't really get into it until now that I think about it. I mean, I was probably I distinctly remember sitting in my house, and I have some students, which I had some students that I mentioned this to. Maybe it's kind of weird, maybe it's not. But sitting on a couch and you're sitting sideways, you can use the seat as the snare drum. You can use the back of the couch as a hi-hat. The arm of the couch is the floor, or is the rack tom. So, I mean, I did that for years, listening to music and things.
And you get a good rebound on the couch.
Exactly.
You really.
So then later on in middle school, then I was able to. They had a band program, and I got a pair of sticks and a drum pad and a book, and we met downstairs in the band room, and the band director who taught everything, sax, trumpet, whatever. he knew enough about playing drums. That's kind of where I started my reading and playing and kind of doing all
Perfect, perfect age to start that
Yeah,
kind of thing. You know, it
yeah.
wasn't probably too painful for you, like maybe when they're 17, 18 or so,
Right,
and they
right.
fight the whole way. That is amazing. What drummers were influencing you early on? Ringo, I assume,
Yeah, yeah.
and who else?
Well, it's really strange. I've always listened to like everything, that I listen to. I'm listening to the drums. I'm focusing in on the drums. But it probably wasn't until later on when I was like in high school and stuff that I started getting into like bands, hanging out with friends. We had garage bands and stuff.
Yeah.
But I was really into, oddly enough, the Allman Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've listened much of them. And,
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix Experience, those types of things. But just anything. And then later on, I kind of got more into the jazz aspect, Tony Williams, people like that, Jack DeJohnette.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
But two things that happened, a couple side notes. The Allman Brothers Band and Jimi Hendrix, I had two really weird things happen. I was living in Atlanta and I was playing in a club. And when I got done playing a set, I walked out into the club and there was a guy that came up to me and he said, "Man, I really was digging what you were doing up there." And I said, "Well, cool, man. I really appreciate that. I appreciate that when anybody says that."
Yeah.
But come to find out, it was J-Mo from the Allman Brothers Band.
No.
One of the drummers. Yeah. So that was kind of wild. And then later on, when I moved up to Nashville, I'm sitting in a club. It seems like all my little local gigs that I do are jazz gigs. So I'm sitting in a club in Nashville doing a gig. Same thing happens. A guy comes up to me and says, "Man, I really like what you were doing." And he looked familiar. And anyhow, it was Mitch Mitchell from Jimi Hendrix.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was. Because he was in Nashville for a little while. I don't know exactly why, but Mitch Mitchell was just in Nashville hanging out. And I think maybe he was doing some recording and stuff.
Wow.
So to have those two guys that I listened to when I was young, eventually later on find me and listen to what I'm doing and go, "Man, really love what you're doing." I'm like, okay, this is cool. Maybe it'll work out.
And that is a sign, I think sometimes when we get frustrated and when we're sometimes questioning, is this what I should be doing? I think something here, and that's, hello, this is to tell you, just keep going. And it's the and listening to your gut. But I imagine you were at that point, you could play pretty well. You did do music college. I was reading on DuaneNorman.com, and that's a really nice site actually. It's
well, thanks.
It's well laid out and it's great. And but it said that you did some studying, some music studying.
Right. When I graduated early from high school, because I went to high school and I was I didn't get in any trouble, heavy stuff. I wasn't into it. I was more into music. So I found this situation. I talked to the guidance counselors and stuff at school, and I was able to skip my senior year. And I went up to New York, upstate New York, and there was a school that was up there, and they've just really recently gotten popular again. There's a drummer, I don't know if you've ever heard of Billy Martin.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Billy Martin kind of joined the faculty of creative music studio is the name of it. Yep. Catskill Mountains, Carl Berger. But at the time when I was there, Jack DeJohnette and another fabulous drummer who I don't think a lot of people know about, that was very instrumental in my whole playing, I guess, concept and stuff, is Bob Moses.
Yes.
And it's really strange because there's stuff that I learned at that school, though that many years ago, that still kind of creeps into my head every once in a while.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily a formal, college, because I didn't want to necessarily get down that road, because I didn't want to be a band director. I didn't want to be a teacher. So this exposed me, and that was like kind of cutting edge before they actually had a term for it. Now it has been for years, world music.
Yes.
So you had all these different percussionists and all these other musicians from all over the world coming together and fusing all this music, and later on became world music. But at the time we were just playing. So I got to play with a guy, Dave Holland, who was English guy, bass player that played with Miles Davis. Yeah. Yep. And so it was kind of a turning point for me.
And Ornette Coleman as well, I read.
Ornette Coleman, and he was one of the ones that started the school. He and Don Cherry and Carl Berger, and yeah.
Wow, what an education! And being a young person, being exposed to that really gave you the
That was
foundation
it.
for playing the drums, whether you knew that or not. I was
Right.
smart enough early on to know that learning how to play jazz was going to be super beneficial no matter what I
Right.
chose to make a living at playing, because it was going to develop the independence, the coordination, the
Right.
touch, the feel, all that, the sound, everything, because they were aware of that.
Right.
So that is fabulous. So after the creative school, what happened? Where did you go?
I went back to Coshocton, Ohio, and I
Yeah.
graduated. I graduated from high school.
Wow, you were that young. Well,
Yeah,
you were that
yeah,
young doing that.
yeah,
That's okay.
yeah.
That's terrific. Yeah, yeah. Okay, sorry.
And so I eventually met some people at the Creative Music Studio who lived in Atlanta. And they said, hey, there's some music going on down in Atlanta. Why don't you come on down? And I'm like, well, yeah, the Allman Brothers kind of in Atlanta and you know, that area of the world. So my brother and I, my brother who's a guitar player, sorry about that. I probably should have set it to not to go to sleep, right? Okay. So I'll have to do that again, won't I? So anyhow, my brother is a guitar player. He and I moved down and started getting into different bands and different situations and stuff. So I was down there for probably 12 years or more, 12, 14 years.
Yeah, wow.
And again, I kind of went up through the ranks. I was doing jingles for the Cartoon Network and Turner Television, which, you know, was like CNN and all that stuff. And doing concerts in Amphitheater, Chastain Park with the Atlanta Symphony. I mean, I just liked doing everything. And so I finally got to the point while I was there that I just wanted music to be more to me. I didn't want it to be a hobby. When I'd show up to a gig, and the first thing when we started playing, the bass player or somebody turns around and starts looking at their watch, I'm like, okay, this guy's just, he's going and he's punching a time card, and he's not really interested in the music. It's just like it's a job. He's wanting to make money, and that's kind of the end of it. So
right. Yeah, those are
so then on my weekends or my weekdays, I would get in the car, drive up to Nashville, a couple 100 miles, start poking around in Nashville, and then finally made the decision to, well, okay, let's move to Nashville. So, and I've got a wife and 2 kids at that time. You know, they were young boys, and I'm like, man, is this the thing to do? I don't want to go, because being in Nashville and seeing all that stuff, there's so many people moving there every day. And I didn't want to be one of those guys, I guess the statistics, as it were, who move there to try to do something, and then you're putting their family through agony and grief and stress, and nothing ever happens. And so anyhow, fortunately enough, that didn't happen.
Indeed. So what were some of the things that brought you to another level? And when did you actually move to Nashville? Let's go there.
1997.
97. What were
so
some
like 23 years.
23 years. You believe that? It's 23 years ago. That's
I know.
That's crazy. I was 30 years old and
well, there you go.
Holy smokes. So what kind of work were you getting when you moved to Nashville? What were you doing?
Well, you move to a place like Nashville, and it doesn't matter what it is. If the phone rings, you say, yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I played in some pretty rough kind of country bars in some weird, sketchy parts of town. I would play, I got hooked up immediately somehow with a society band, probably the top one in the town in Nashville, because I think it was mainly because I could read and do all those things. So, you know, that's reading, you know, and I stress that to my students, it's just so important. It's like, to me, it's like I always use the analogy, maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but it's like if you can't read and write, like talking English, whatever, it makes life tough. It's the same thing with music, man. I can walk into any situation, somebody can hand me a chart, and probably 10, 15 minutes later, either we're recording, we're playing, we're doing whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like guys get kind of frustrated about that if they have like garage bands or bands that they're starting. man, we worked on that song for 45 minutes and they kept going to the wrong, they went to the chorus. And I'm like, did you have any charts? No. Okay. You will probably sit there for a really long time doing that. But anyway.
And memorizing, I don't have time sometimes to learn
I don't either.
a whole 2-hour show and to memorize it. After a lot of repetition and reading, you know it anyways.
Right.
But the reading makes it so much. My goal when I first started reading was that I wanted to open up Modern Drummer magazine and be able to read the exercises or the things that were in it. I'd open it up and I was 19 and it was like Greek to me. And now it's like, this is really, it was really handy. Do you use the Nashville number system or do you write out notated things or both?
I can read the Nashville number system. For me, what I've always done, and I think I heard long time ago when I first moved, that Larry London would make his own chart, but it would all be ones. Because in my mind, if I'm going to write out a number chart, first of all, I'm not that into harmony and the structure, harmonic structure, to know if it's a 1, 6, 5, 1, 1, 4, that kind of a thing. Yep. So rather than me sit there and agonize that out, I just need to have a roadmap. 1, 1. So my charts look like all ones. But I can read the Nashville number system. But the only problem, I've got an interesting story about the Nashville number system. When I first got to Nashville, the only drawback with the Nashville number system is in regular standard notation. Everything is pretty well, as I mentioned, standard.
Yes.
So everybody knows what everything is. Okay. The problem with it's not a problem, but the issue with the Nashville number system is that everybody has their own little way of writing it.
Right.
So I remember being in a session, just gotten to town, and I'm reading number charts. I'm like, okay, this is making sense. But I noticed that every time I was doing a drum fill leading into like the chorus or whatever, the guys were already there. And I'm like, okay. So what's happening? I said, I'm sorry. This is like a run through. I said, sorry guys, I'm not following out what's going on. And they go, okay, let's go over this. I said, there's 1, 4, 1, 1, 0. And I said, well, what's the 0? And they look at me and they go, well, that means there's nothing there.
I've never heard that.
No. So what was really crazy was rather than, and that's the way the guy wrote his version of the number system, which was kind of weird. So in other words, by the time I was reading that 0, that there's nothing there, I'm doing my drum fill there, they've already moved on. Well, why don't you just write a 2/4 bar? Or why don't you just write a 1 with a little line under it? There's multiple ways of doing it, but that's the problem that I find. Nobody has a standard way of doing it.
Right. Have you seen Jim Riley book? I'm sure you have.
Yeah. But one that I think that's cool that Jim has written one. I think George Lawrence has written one also.
Yeah.
But I was told early on there was a guy in town named Chaz Williams.
Okay.
He's a guitar player. He's the one that wrote the initial book of the Nashville number system. Okay. Now this is the initial book, and he got the blessing of the guys who kind of came up with it. One of the guys I recently, like a few months ago, last September, had a chance of playing with is Charlie McCoy. I don't know if you're familiar with Charlie McCoy. Okay. So he was one of the architects of the Nashville number system. So he, Chaz has his blessing, in other words. So there's nothing wrong with all the other ones, but to have a book of like how the Nashville number system applies to drums.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. For me, that's not necessary.
I just found that I needed to write in some more information because I was used to reading drum charts.
Sure.
I do like being able to see and have a bird's eye view of the song and know on one page where we are going.
Exactly.
Write in little notes and things. And I really like Jim's books, but I also have a hard time sometimes figuring out what some of these harmonies are. And that's one of the things that now I have piano in here in the drummer. That's one of the that I'm going to work on over and get better at hearing it. That's terrific, though. So what is a society band? You mentioned that. Well,
that's what they call them, I guess in the States. What it is like if you have a wedding,
Okay.
if you have a convention, if you have some kind of a big event or whatever, you have these bands who will start off playing light jazz for cocktail hours or whatever. Then you're playing dinner music. Then you start going into the Motown and rock and roll party stuff at the end, and that's basically a society band.
Okay.
So I think the term originated maybe the society bands up in New York City. You know.
Very nice. That's good. I wanted to ask you, when did Gretsch drums come into your life? Were you aware of them when you started listening and playing jazz? When did you get your first set of Gretsch? Let's talk some Gretsch.
How I really got into being aware of Gretsch was I had a couple friends when I moved down to Atlanta. One guy had one. It must have been like I don't know if it was a '60s set or whatever, but it had like that satin flame on it, like a light blue. It was just gorgeous. Sounded incredible. I had another friend. That he had like a mahogany set, and I played on both of these kits, and I'm like, oh man, these are really, really cool. And then I start looking, getting back to J-Mo from the Allman Brothers, played a little Gretsch kit.
Yeah.
Mitch Mitchell with Hendrix, most of the time was playing a Gretsch kit. Then I got into, Philly Joe Jones and I mean, just all the jazz guys. It was always Gretsch, always Gretsch. And then what really kind of blew me away, and I can't even remember when it came out. I don't know if you're familiar with the Tin Sumner's Tales by Sting.
Very much. Yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen that video that he did in his castle over in UK?
Yeah.
Okay. So once I saw that, and I started flipping out with Vinny's playing and stuff, and the sound of the drums, and of course there's Gretsch again. So it's been like a kind of a common thread, and I'm like, okay, so, let's see. It was shortly after I moved to Nashville that I got my first Gretsch kit.
Beautiful.
And it was a blonde gloss.
Oh,
yeah,
that's beautiful. I had a set of those. Those are beautiful. What were the sizes?
Yeah. I still have it. It's 20, 12, and 14.
Wow.
Yeah. And guys always, they're talking about 24-inch kick drums and larger kick drums and stuff like that. All that old Motown stuff and a lot of the pop stuff. I mean, those were done on 20-inch kick drums.
20. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think even from what I remember, I'm blanking on his name here. Tommy Wells was friends with Buddy Harman, and apparently the kit was a Gretsch kit that he had cut a bunch of those tunes on. I don't know if the snare likely was not, but they were small sizes. And of course, Kathy's Clown sounded great. Pretty Woman.
What a great. Oh, so another side note you mentioned Pretty Woman. You asked me like gigs when I got to Nashville. One of the probably, I think a turning point when I got there was I got a gig with Boots Randolph. Have you ever heard of Boots Randolph?
I've got some Boots vinyl.
Yeah, and so there again, he was one of the architects of the Nashville sound. He was cutting tracks with Buddy Harman and all of the Chet Atkins, all the guys. He was doing stuff with Elvis and all the people that were coming into Nashville. Boots was there. So the weird part about it is if you listen to Pretty Woman very closely, you'll hear a baritone sax.
Yes.
And that's Boots.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And like there's a tune by Elvis tune, It's Now or Never, which is kind of like a calypso. Those claves.
Yep.
That's Boots. So anyhow, it was just so crazy, man, because he had a club in Nashville, and we would play 5 or 6 nights in the club, hop in his Cadillac. He would drive to the gig. We would go and do a gig on a night off. He would drive all night, and we'd be in the club the next night. And hearing all these stories about early Nashville and just about music and just the whole vibe, I mean, it was just great. So by me doing things like that, I ran into people who, when it came time when Crystal needed a drummer, a pianist that I knew from all the thing with Boots and different society bands and stuff, said, well, here, give Duane a try. So, and it's all word of mouth. And it's funny, on another side note, all these things are flooding into my head now.
Right.
I came to Nashville, and I had my little demo packet, of my bio and my CD and my business card and everything, and it was just kind of comical thinking about it and looking back at it now. I handed it to somebody and they put it in their car, and on the way home they probably threw it in a dumpster somewhere, because I don't ever remember getting any work at all from anything like that. It was all being on a gig, word of mouth. Hey, played with this guy the other night, calling. So it's that's how all that came about.
It really is. Do you know who John Diamond is? He's a bass player. He's a Canadian bass player. He's in Nashville an awful
Really?
lot. And he said that he said he can't remember getting any gigs from any business cards. I think he said he found some business cards, and he is one of the top call musicians in Canada. And he said it is word of mouth, and I have a website, of course, but it's not published because why? We all get work from.
Well, and if you look at it from a musician's standpoint, it's the same thing. I can get a promo package from a guy. He may sound great on the package and everything may look good, but man, you get him on the stand and he's a whack job, or he can't keep time or whatever. So if you've got the endorsement of somebody who's actually played with you, then it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but getting back to the Gretsch thing, yeah. So I got my first kit, and I mean, the rest is history. The thing of it is, it's like they're so easy to sit down and just, if I have a backline kit, I can tune them up, I can get them positioned, they sound incredible. I don't think I've ever played on a Gretsch kit, even the Catalina levels, any of them, to where they didn't cooperate or they sounded horrible or anything like that. I have a rider, and on my rider, and I'm not going to list names, but I have drums that I do not want. So if a backline company doesn't have Gretsch, okay, well, we've got this. Nope, that's on there. I don't want that, because I can always say, they go, man, what's wrong with that? What's all that all about? And I said, I know going in that it's going to be an extra 45 minutes plus for me to sit down, try to get these drums positioned, and then try to get them to sound correct the way I would like to play them. And it's like if you sit down and you're not hearing what you want to hear, even close to what you want to hear, it's miserable. It's crazy.
Well, so, what do you ask for snare drums if you're traveling and you have a backline kit? What are you asking for?
It doesn't really matter. And that's probably crazy. I don't have to have a certain type of snare drum. I would prefer. Let's see. Now that I think about it, I probably would prefer a metal snare drum, but I don't have to say that I have to have this particular model, a Brooklyn or a Broadcaster or anything like that.
Right. Now you do a lot of theater things with Crystal, or do you do?
You mean yes. Yes, we do some things we haven't done in a while that I always enjoyed. We would go out and she's got a whole book of her hits with a symphony orchestra.
Wow. So
yeah, I mean, that's what's really cool, is like I'm sitting there in the middle of a symphony orchestra and hearing all these arrangements and stuff. So that's cool. But yeah, theaters, smaller theaters, casinos, have taken over, because they all have just incredible venues anymore, it seems,
Right.
And, I played several years ago, I played Carnegie Hall with Crystal.
That is incredible. I've never been there. A drum student played there with his school a year and a half ago, like that, and said it was absolutely. What was that like for you?
Well, it's strange that I mentioned this to people when I played there. I noticed that I looked at the room as almost being a completely separate instrument. It was an instrument in and of itself. It was just so, if I felt like I wanted to play a little bit, and I don't want to use this term louder, but I wasn't playing loud. But if I wanted to get more energy happening, all I had to do was just increase just the slightest little bit, and the room was just like breathing. It was amazing. It was just incredible.
Did the other bandmates feel the same way, that the room sounded incredible?
Oh yeah. And that was with an orchestra there too. So we had an orchestra. It was amazing.
That's
So
really,
that was a highlight.
wow. Yeah, we were supposed to do a symphony show. I play in an ABBA tribute called ABBA
Mhm.
Revisited, and it's a really terrific show, but it didn't happen. So, but hopefully we do, and they have done those in the past, and it sounds like amazing. What could be more incredible having ABBA music with real
Right,
strings on a section and real percussion?
right,
Yeah,
right.
that would be amazing. How
I
did
think I think the unfortunate part, the reason why we haven't been doing any of those or for lately is because I think just budget's being cut. Unfortunately,
yeah,
I don't know that for a fact, but I mean we were doing quite a few of those, and then all of a sudden it just like kind of went away. But and then we
right?
did the stagecoach thing. I've played that with her out in California.
What's
That
that?
gig.
What's that?
It's like a place out in like Palm Springs, close to Palm Springs, and they
Okay.
just have like weeks, or not weeks, days of just outside, and they have different stages, and it's just massive.
Oh man.
Stagecoach, and there's another one that's out there. I can't think of the name of the other one. It's kind of more pop,
Right.
but
That's
yeah, yeah,
what.
great.
So besides that little blonde kit, what do you own of Gretsch drums?
Um, the first kit that I actually got when I got my endorsement it's a rosewood gloss, and
Yes.
it's 22, 10, 12, 14, and I've got the 6.5
Oh,
by 14 snare. So that
that,
was, I mean, I use that when I'm going in to do some recordings that are going to be recordings, kind of major recordings.
yeah.
I'll pull that kit out because it's just unbelievable. It's just incredible.
Is that a
Uh,
nine kit?
Pardon me?
Is
Yes,
that a
yes, 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 yeah, yeah.
what a
So I,
great?
I placed the order, and I got it, and I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And
Yeah.
again, it's got the die-cast tubes, and you sit there and you just tune it, and it's just amazing. And a lot of guys will go about the 14-inch floor tom. A lot of guys will kind of shy away from that, but if you tune it correctly in the right selection of heads, I believe you can get a 14 to kind of sound a little bit. Now I've got another Renowned kit, and it has a 16, and sometimes I'm trying to get that floor tom to stop
Yes.
resonating.
Yep.
you know. So you can get a low tone out of a 14. Um, my dog's sitting over here looking at me, but anyhow, you can get a low tone out of a 14, which a lot less, not a lot less, but less sustain.
Yes.
So I've got the Renown kit. That's the same. No, that's 22, 10, 12, 16.
Wow.
And that's like a cherry burst. And that's the one that I take out on the road most of the time because I got a little bit frustrated when I would take my USA custom kits out on the road. And I mean, this one incident in particular really got kind of miffed about. The guy at the end of the show comes up and he's taking all the mic cables out of the mics, out of the microphones.
Oh,
And he's just going like this and just kind of just throwing them. He's trying to collect the mics. The cables can go anywhere. Well, one of the ends of the mic cable kind of dinged my kick drum, and I'm like, okay, guys, really. So anyhow, I
yeah.
thought at that point, I can't be taking these nice Cadillac drums out on the road if I'm going to have situations like that happen. So I got the Renown. Not that I don't care if that happens to them, but if it does, a Renown is just, as you know, is just a workhorse. They sound incredible, and they're just amazing drums.
They do, and I had exactly the same situation as you playing a casino, and people
Mm-hmm.
were really rough. I don't even
Yeah,
want to go and take my stuff after. Just
yeah.
I'm like, please no, because I've had people break the bass drum head. I've had actually
Whoa.
a fight happen. The first gig I ever brought my my USA kit,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the bass drum got turned around, and two guys fell on my floor tom
Whoa.
and
Gee whiz.
cracked the leg holder. So there was it was, yeah. It was a
Yeah.
little hard. So I would bring out, and of course now I have the white Renown kit, one of those,
Hmm.
and of course they're being satin white. Everything leaves a mark
Right.
on the bill, but
Right.
whatever.
Right.
I'm not as afraid if something were to happen to those.
Exactly.
But
I
anyways,
do.
but
I
I
do have a. I do have a Catalina birch kit too.
oh nice. I've never
Yeah.
played. Yeah, you like those?
Yes, it's totally different. I mean, there is sustain, but I believe there's a lot more attack on the toms.
Yeah,
So it's
oh.
kind of a totally different sound.
One of the things I love about being an endorser or just even being a Gretsch lover in general, we cover everything from you can. I don't think they make the birch, Catalina birch anymore, but you can find them. But
Right.
we have everything that you would need. I sold all my
Sure.
brand of snare drums once I became an endorser because I didn't need to have anything else. We cover from all the
Right.
lines and all the woods and whatnot from the Brooklyns with the 302 hoops to the die-cast hoops of the USA's. Man,
Yeah.
what about
Well, the
snare?
company. I'll just say one thing on that note. The company has really progressed in
Yeah,
just even in the time that I've been with them. You know, for the 16 years, 17 years, 16 years, whatever.
yeah,
Um, Not that there wasn't a lot of options back then, but I mean, you look at the options that maybe was available in the 70s or the 80s. Wasn't really that much. It was kind of limited. And now they've gone to a whole another level, like you say, with what you can get whatever you want. You can get snare drums. You know, I have a bunch of different varieties of the
yeah.
snare drums, the steel or the brushed brass or just a Brooklyn chrome over steel, and just I mean they all just sound incredible.
They do, and they're all different. I've got my little collection, and then I saw Chris Fryer's collection when he was on the show,
Yeah.
and he has a problem, I think. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, I have a someone, my wife, that keeps me in check on those types of things. Although my latest snare drum that I did have to buy um, was really a strange story. I was playing out in Texas, and right next door to this venue, there's a pawn shop.
oh,
And every time we go and play this venue, we always go over to the pawn shop, see what's going
yeah,
on. And there's never anything there. And if there is anything there, it's just outrageous in price. Well, I go over there and I'm looking around and I see this snare drum and I'm like, okay, this is really strange. So it's a Gretsch snare drum, and it's I want to say it's like 5 by 14 because it's actually kind of thin, but it's like that blonde gloss, just like my
yes,
original kit, the 20. And I looked at it and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to want $700 or $800 for this easily, you know, in a pawn shop. And I looked, it's on sale. They had it for $199. And then I went over to talk to the sound man at the venue, and I said, man, what's going on at that place? I said, you guys ever buy anything over there? And he goes, yeah, why? He goes, what do you need? I know the guy really well. So I go over and he talked him down even more. So
wow,
then it's one of the snare drums that on the inside, it has the, like the American flag
no
label.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took a picture of it and I sent it to Paul, and I said, Paul, can you tell me anything about that? He goes, well, yeah, I can tell you all about it. He says, because that's my signature.
I built it. Yeah, that's
So, yeah, that was my latest
wow.
acquisition. So that was
That's a USA drum.
yes, USA custom, and it was die-cast tubes, and it just sounds amazing.
Oh, I bet. And that is in Nashville. You don't have anything with you. You're in Orlando.
No, yeah. My wife and I bought this condo in Orlando about 8 years ago.
Nice.
And we come down here and just kind of decompress and
Beautiful.
just relax. And that's why I asked you. I said, well, am I going to need any drums? Because I don't have any drums down here. Although
No.
it's really kind of strange because since I've been down here, I come down and I there again, all of my local gigs are always jazz gigs. I go over to Tampa and I play jazz with guys in restaurants and clubs and things, you know. But there's a house kit there, and it's a Catalina Maple, just a small little jazz kit. So it's a house kit. I take my cymbals. It's easy.
That's
So it's
wonderful.
fun. Yeah.
That's I was curious to see You mentioned that the Crystal Gale gig came to you from knowing the piano player from the society gig. Tell us about that.
Well, it was a situation to where I was playing in the society gig, and we kind of hit it off, and he was aware of my playing. Then she needed a drummer, and somebody had called him and said he was actually playing with her at the time, and they just says, "Hey, we're looking for a drummer. Do you know anybody that we can audition, we can try out?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "Call Duane." So I think I was coming out of a session or something, and I had a phone call message on my cell phone, and I picked it up and asked if I would be interested in coming down and auditioning, and I said, "Well, yeah, of course."
Yeah.
So
Wow. So what happened at the audition? What did you prepare ahead of time?
I was thinking about that the other day in preparation to this chat, and I don't know if they actually sent me anything or not. I can't even remember. It's been so long ago. I think they probably did, but there again, I think it was one of those things where they said, "Well, do you read?" And I said, "Yes." Okay, they bring charts, and off we go. So we did a little audition. I think it was me and the pianist and the music director, and I was playing. I can't remember what I was playing, and then all of a sudden, I hear a voice, and it was Crystal walking in from. She has a studio and an office down on Music Row in Nashville, so that's kind of where we do all the rehearsing and things like that. So she came walking into the room, and a couple of days later, I found out I got the gig.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so I had an interesting observation by a friend not long ago, and I guess it's true. I never really thought too much about it, but they say that it's one thing to be able to audition and get a gig, but it's another thing to keep the gig.
Yes. Yeah.
So this has been a long-term gig,
That's
which is great.
And those are hard to come by.
They are.
And when you get something good and there's a good chemistry, you want it to,
Right.
remain that way. How many piece band do you normally go out?
Six piece band.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
And we're doing our first gig back next Saturday in North Georgia.
Okay.
But there's going to be, I think there's only going to be half the band. The original band is going with us because the other three are just, not really sure what's going on.
Right.
So
what is the?
It's the Milltown Music Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's actually a really nice venue, and we're going to get down and see how it goes. I don't have any problems going down and playing because I'm not going to be, shaking hands or whatever, milling around with people. And it kind of is what it is, but that's a whole nother topic, isn't it? That's a whole nother hour.
Yeah, you're better just to be safe, just to keep your distance and to be safe. I have a show, as you know. This is why we're early,
right?
And I leave in about 45 minutes to go play, but we're outdoors on some rocks, right on a beautiful bay up about an hour and a half from here. So that'll be really nice for you to play and to see some people again.
Yeah, I think so.
That'll be really nice.
But I have been playing it once I finally things started opening up and stuff. I sent you that link to that. I've been playing at a church. Actually, I play at several churches. I'm one of these guys. It's like it's kind of common thread in my career. It's kind of strange. It's like even I worked on cruise ships early on when I was living in Atlanta. I would go and I would play. Then I would come back home. I was always like kind of the guy that would kind of help everybody out. Duane, we need somebody on this ship for 2 weeks. Can you cover it for us?
Wow.
Yeah, I was always a troubleshooter. Yeah, can you do it 3 weeks? Yeah, okay. So it's kind of the same situation here now. I have all these churches calling me whenever they, need somebody, and I go, okay, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, all right, I'll go. So that's been cool. But I have been able to do that, which, man, I'll tell you, you're sitting around, you're not playing, you're not doing anything. The bad part about it is you do start having a little bit of, doubt in your mind. And you're like, man, am I going to be able to do this again? But I sat down at a rehearsal with the group, and I'm going, those thoughts don't even enter your mind at that point, because this is what I do. And the interesting thing about that link that I sent you at that church, I have to run Ableton. I have in-ears. I'm listening to a click. I'm reading charts. I'm doing this.
Yep.
I'm doing that. So that was like coming from 5 months of sitting at home, not doing anything, to like hot seat immediately. So anyhow.
Yeah. Well, that's good to get you back, and you
Yeah.
probably that video was great for sure. What a amazing singers, man.
Yeah.
I was blown away. I'm watching. My wife goes, "Who is that?" And I said,
Yeah.
"This is what Duane sent me in." Man,
Yeah.
what a great situation. John Chalden, another friend of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's from
John,
Atlanta.
some of the and such a wonderful guy and such a great drummer, and he posts some things from his church gigs. Man, I wish I had one of those, but they're not as common up here.
Yeah.
In Canada, but they look like they'd be really a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was convenient. That's why I mentioned to you, it was convenient. They have a house kit. They have house cymbals, and you don't want to make waves and go, man, I got to bring my Gretsch kit in, or whatever. I walk in, I play, try to get them sounding close to what I want, and it works.
Yeah, as long as they sound good out front as well.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they're going to most of the time.
yeah.
So you've been a Gretsch endorser 17
Yeah.
years, right around the time you've been playing with Crystal. How did the endorsement come about for you, and what does it mean to be part of such an iconic brand and Gretsch family?
Well, I bought that blonde kit, and I thought, I might as well talk to them and see if there's any interest at all. I'd like to buy some more drums, see if they think. But so at that time, I was doing some stuff. I just started doing some things with Crystal. I had some videos of some TV things that I did, and I sent it in, and it kind of, like I mentioned to you, it's a thing where I guess there's got to be a certain amount of exposure to people for them to find it worthwhile. They're probably not going to have somebody be an endorser that's playing. Like if I was still playing with the society band, I guess it wouldn't be as advantageous, So because I have people come up all the time. I mean, almost after every show, they see the Gretsch logo. Man, those drums sounded incredible. Wow, that's So that's a good thing for them and whatever. So it's but what it means to me is like I'm a part of this company that's been around for, look how long they've been around. Such a part of the whole music history, of the world, really. I mean, even from the guitars, the drums, I mean, just everything,
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing to just kind of be a part of that,
Right.
And the quality of the drums. The quality of the drums themselves is enough, but then you have that extra added layer of just the whole history and just representing that history and stuff.
It's incredible. It was a dream come true for sure. And Fred Gretsch and I, every now and again, he's a fan. He and Dinah are a fan of the video podcast. And we were camping a few weeks ago, not Fred and Dinah and I, but I was out camping, and we're messaging back and forth. And I think it's wonderful to be able to communicate.
Oh, yeah.
With Paul Cooper at the factory and Josh Safer, but Fred and Dinah and then Lena at Gretsch Gear, and man, they've got the coolest stuff. Yeah. You and I both have our
Gators,
and they're really cool. I use that when I teach, so that's really and man, I'm
well, and the good part about it is like when you have endorsements and things, people always say, well, welcome to the family. Well, this maybe probably the only endorsement that I have that I actually feel like it is a family. Because I mean, you're talking to the people who are responsible for making the instruments, and you're not just like a person on the roster. And who are you? Well, you need to do this, and so whatever, Yeah. And that means a lot. That means a lot.
It really does. Have you been to the factory?
I have. Have you ever watched? I'm sure you have watched The Wizard of Oz, the movie, the old movie.
I have. Yep.
So I always use that as an analogy. I think it's crazy because you're walking up to the factory, and everything's in black and white, and as soon as they open the door, there's Oz, and you look inside, and you're like, whoa.
I know. Yeah. My face hurt. I smiled the whole 45 minutes or whatever that Paul Cooper took us around, and I couldn't believe it. And I was having to say, okay, listen to what he's saying, because I was just like, it was.
Well, really and then they still have some of those machines that that they use to make Tony Williams drums, you
The
know,
whole
and Hart Blakey and those
Oh.
guys. It's just, it's amazing.
And Paul's he made that MacGyver, that device to cut the bearing edges. That
Right.
man,
Yep.
that is I was there on January 2nd of 2018, so they had cleared out all the stock that they had. So he goes, real sorry that we don't have a lot of drums in here because we actually exceeded our sales goal. You know,
Good, perfect. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to hear.
It was really wonderful. What does the rest of 2020 look like for you, Duane?
I don't know. It's like I had a bunch of, I still do have a bunch of dates on the books, but little by little, it seems like I keep getting emails and calls and stuff. Everything just keeps getting, a lot of the stuff that I had through the fall now is in April of 2021. And that I still have a few things happening that I really hope happen, because for like 10 or 11 years now, every fall we've gone out to Las Vegas with Crystal, and we play at this venue, and we're there for 3 or 4 days, and it's just really nice, a nice showroom, and it's just a good time. You know, my wife comes with me and we just hang, and that was supposed to be happening like right now in September, and now it's been pushed to November, and I'm like, I wonder if it's actually going to happen. I'm like, probably not. You know, so I don't know. I'm wide open and available. So if other things do come around, you know, once things settle down or whatever, I have availability, which is kind of cool, you know, because there are always in Nashville, there's always other opportunities of, hey man, let's do this, let's do that. Okay, you know, so.
Yes.
And a lot of times I feel like I have to turn things down because I'm not in town. Oh man, I'm not in town that weekend. I can't do it. But now it's a lot more availability. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Because like I say, everything just keeps pushing back. So that being said, I don't know what's going to be happening in 2020, but I know what's going to be happening in 2021. I have a pretty good idea. It's going to be just slammed, which is good.
Yes, which is
so, yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time, Duane. Appreciate you being wonderful to work with. You believe an hour just about has flown by?
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? I'm looking, going, wow, this is like we have 2.5 minutes or so. Where can people find you on the web, and how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, I have a website, DuaneNorman.com, that you mentioned earlier. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and that's probably the easiest way.
Wonderful.
But just, you know, contact me through my website or whatever, and chat or whatever you want to do, and, you know, any questions, I'm totally cool with talking about anything.
I really hope we meet in person. I don't know if you ever get to NAM. I've never been to NAM, and that is a goal. It's a long way from here to get to part of the country, but I tell you, it'd be great to chat drums, have a coffee, have some kind of a beverage, and face to face. So thank you.
Well, if you ever get back down to Orlando, I may be here, or down in Florida, I may be here at the same time you are. You never know.
Yeah.
You were down here for quite a while, weren't you?
Was down
last year?
Close to a month earlier this year, and then we were there in March, and then everything happened, and we're like, get home. So anyway, all the best to you and the family.
Right.
Stay safe.
Same to you.
And
have a good gig. Have a good gig.
Yes, I appreciate that today and tomorrow. Just a fun little gig. So thank you so much. So this was wonderful. Episode number 20 of the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. Stay tuned. We are back on normal time, normal day next week for another terrific guest. Again, thank you, Duane Norman. Everybody take care. Bye now.
All right. Bye.